Right, but before I go on to today's review, I have a bit of explaining to do. It's to do with the layout, which as you can see, it looks very different from the last time you saw it. That's because, over the past weeks, work has been done on it. For the most part anyway. There's still some work that needs to be done over around here. You'll also have to excuse the mess around here. We've got bottles of PVA. There's an empty tub there. Various bags of scatter. This is a bag full of rocks. There's paint. A bag of trees. A good shed. And a little bit of ballast left in here. And there's some ballast left in here as well. There's also some mesh around here as well. So basically, it is looking like a, well, nearly almost a bomb site at the moment. But, you know, that's because there is work being still done on it. We do have these buildings here though, which are now added, in which I've still got to build a few more that I have, and add a road as well. Also, all lines, both main lines, the railway that runs all the way top here, above the tunnel, and the sidings, all bad focus there, are now all ballasted. And now that this part of the station is now ballasted, the canopies are now glued on, so I can start doing the station. Excuse the bottle of J2O. We've got these buildings here, and these sidings are also ballasted. You've got plenty of trees and walls and bushes, and a few hillocks, and a little walkway path, which I added, and you've got these line side huts as well. And then you've got this little town that I've made, with buildings. A few people's been added and cars, and buildings of course, like the petrol station. And a lot more work has been done on it as well, but that's all going to be coming up in a layout update that will happen very soon. And also, before I forget, this that was originally going to be the diesel depot is now going to be a steam shed, hence why there's a water tower here. And currently on shed is the pride of the fleet, Commonwealth of Australia, and also the windmill has now been added, so it now has its place on the layout. That area though still needs some detailing, but anyway, enough what we've been done on the layout. Now let's crack on with today's review. Right, so the loco we're having a look at is made by Bachmann, as you can see, and today we're having a look at the BR Standard Class 5 MT, not to be confused with the Stanier 5 MT, better known to you all as either the Black 5 or the Stanier Class 5. The MT stands for mixed traffic, meaning this loco can pull either passengers or freight, not at the same time, because I've seen a lot of people that get confused with that. Let's put it this way. Basically, one day this locomotive could pull coaches, the other day it could pull wagons. Because let's face it, how often do you see a coal train coupled up behind an express? Never. But I'm sure you're all thinking, looking at this photograph on the box, which is wrong by the way, because this model is not in BR Black. I'm sure you're thinking, hang on a minute, that's not a standard class 5, that's a standard class 4. They are very similar locomotives, but the notable difference when you look at the standard 4 in reality are the size of the driving wheels. I stuttered a bit there. The 260 versions had 1.600 diameter drive wheels, whereas the 460s had 1.727 diameter drive wheels. But that is the only real notable difference between a standard 4 and a standard 5. A standard 3 is a hybrid, sharing parts from an LMS Ivet Class 4, and the boiler was derived from GGBR locos that appeared on the 262T Prairie tanks and the 5600 class, known to you all as the taffy tanks. And also the motion brackets came from LMS 260s and were even used on the LMS 262Ts. Standard 5 was essentially developed from a black 5, and they do look almost similar, and in fact were called copies. I don't know why, but that is complete nonsense, because there are differences between a Standard 5 and a black 5. Obviously being a higher running plate, which even prevents the usage of wheel splashes. Their drive wheels were much bigger than what they were on the black 5, and even a Standard 4, being 1.880 diameter driving wheels, and they had a standard cab as well. But anyway, so let's look at the model. So it's a standard class 5MT, running number is 73014 in BR green with a light crest and has the BR1 tender. These locomotives actually had 5 tenders in reality. They had the BR1 tender, which is the tender that this model comes with. They also had the 3,500 gallon tender, which is the BR2 tender. Then there's a similar tender, which is the BR2A tender, followed by the BR1F and BR1B tenders. Not many locomotives had 5 tenders in reality. And this model has been in its box for nearly 3 weeks actually. It came from S&J models, and out of all models I've had from S&J is quite quick, because I only had to wait 1 day for it. That must be a Guinness World Record, for S&J anyway. Either way, let's get this model open and have a look at it. And this model is also special as well, but you'll see why later. So, here's the old standard Bachmann box, which they don't use anymore, but the packaging, let's be fair, is more identical, not identical, more ideal than the plastic packaging they use now. So here's the card insert that you used to get with Bachmann's models, you don't know, because now, pun intended, the brief history is written on the back of the boxes, and they lack the drawings as well, but you know. And so we have a picture on the front, and they've just wrote on the front of here, just 5MT. They didn't even bother writing BR Standard class. How very original. But anyway, so on the back, this is its brief history. If you want to see its full history, go onto Wikipedia. And these standard 5MTs, they were built between 1951 and 1957. And numbers 73125 to 73154 had caprotti valve gear and poppet valves. Only one of the standard class 5s though survives with the caprotti valve gear, and that is number 73129, that's preserved at the Butterley Railway. And in fact it's one of 2 locomotives survives in Britain with the caprotti valve gear, the other being Duke of Gloucester. And the others in preservation are 73050, 73082, 73096 and 73156. I'm not going to say what preserved railways they're on. I know what preserved railways they're on, and so do you. And I just can't be bothered to say, really. So, we'll put the card insert to one side. Then we have the paperwork, in which we have the collectible flyer and the guarantee. And that's basically it, really. You don't even get instructions with this model, which is quite unusual because you usually do. Oh well. Okay, so there's the model. So, now it did come resting in foam sheeting, but because it's been out of the box already, I have thrown away the foam sheets because I wasn't going to put it back in the box. Just isn't worth it. So, if we can just find the hole in the back of the box, there we go. We will ever so carefully lift the model out. Now I will also point out at this point, I have actually also modified the box because it did come with a detailing pack, but because I've added some of the details on already, I didn't want to snap them off when I took it out of the box, so I have done some modifying there, which is what makes these boxes great really, in a way. We'll also get the tender out as well, very carefully. Now I do have some details in here, only a few that I haven't added, so I will show you those, since I'm such a nice guy. Okay, so now just put the empty polystyrene tray away. Okay, so first we have the screw link coupling. It's not a chain link coupling, it's a screw link coupling because, well, its name is in the title. Basically what it does, it acts in a very similar way to a vice. And I've added the one on at the front because, well, I didn't really have any intention to use the other one, but this can be used as a spare, and so it will do, because I can. Then we have this, which is some sort of vacuum pipe. Now I did actually attempt to try and put this on. However, I do have a problem with these, and the situation is perfectly simple. The holes are too small to fit them in, because as soon as you put them in, and I've dropped it, and I've got it again, as soon as you put these in the holes, they just go boah, and they end up lifted under the frames, and so you have to pick them out again, and so it's quite annoying. And to be honest, I don't usually bother adding these anyway, so they don't really work out. And then we have this coupling that was at the front of the logo, but because I have no intention to use it, I've removed it. It does have a coupling on the tender, but I don't really plan to use this one at the front, so I've taken it off. But I can put it in my spares box. Okay, so now we can talk about the model. Before I do, however, I did previously own a standard class, being a standard class 4. However, that model has now since broken. I shall show it you. Viewers are warned. What you are about to see, you may find graphic. And here it is. See, look, I told you it was graphic. And this is basically, it's still standing, but what's pretty much left of it, basically. You will notice that the entire link motion is missing. It's all that's left is a few side rods. I do have the link motion for this side. Oh, a wheel's just fallen out of the bogie. Just put that to one side. On the other side, the link motion is all present and correct. It's not on the other side. You'll also notice that the body shell is quite loose, and so it can come off like that. Here is the link motion from this side. And this locomotive was first brought in, I can't remember at the top of my head. Basically, it was a year where we went on a 3-day camping holiday down in Bewdley. And it was the year when Tor Valley was in service, Mass Guardianers Otter St Mary and their 8F had WD written on its tender. I forget the year, but the year's not really that important. And it was actually bought from Modeller's Mecca second hand, along with a Lima Deltic, which you've all seen. Result. And I've had this model for many years, and it was a fairly reliable locomotive. It did its job we had to do, until last year, where it had got broke. And I don't mean that I dropped it on the floor or it fell off a shelf. No, it's quite different. Basically what happened is, this was pulling a goods train around the layout, and as soon as it got to where I was standing, I noticed, if we put it round this end, that this part here that slots into the valve gear, and I've taken it out deliberately to show you, this had come away from the valve gear, and that is because the valve gear itself, this part here, is made of plastic. Why? Now, this model was made when Bachmann had not long started, hence no sprung buffers and narrow couplings with big fat chumpy coupling hooks held in place via a spring. But why plastic valve gear? Look at this, people. Here's a model made around the same time as the standard class, It's the Jubilee Bahamas. I'm not entirely sure what year it was brought out, but I don't care. Look at this. Metal valve gear. Look at that. Metal. Not plastic. So why couldn't they do the same thing with this model? Were they smoking cannabis or something? I know what we'll do. We'll give a model plastic valve gear. No. It's an absolute fail. Yeah, you don't see plastic valve gear models now, but it's just an absolute poor design. You know, and this certainly doesn't happen with models you get now. But you know, if it would just be ridiculous. And it is, even back then. Because you get people that moan about the slightest things. Oh, this model has no sprung buffers. Or, there's no painted cab detailing painted. Nah. They don't complain about things like this, regardless, even if it was around the time when Bachmann started. Hornby back then didn't put plastic valve gear on their models, so why did Bachmann? Ugh. And so basically what happened is, we tried to disconnect it, and we did, but we noticed another problem. The pins, which I don't have, were bent. And it doesn't stop there. The bogie itself, that holds the wheels in place, can come out quite easily, simply because the plastic is actually bent, because you can very faintly see some marks on it from where it's been bent. And you know, that is another pathetic design really. And the only uses for these wheels now is to take them out completely and stick them on the layout, like by the engine shed. Just adds a bit of realism, because this locomotive will never see the light of day again. And also the screws, we lost them as well, I think. I don't really care anyway, because I've got a new one that I am 10 times much happier than with this one. In fact, I do remember at some point trying to find a replacement chassis, but to no avail. Finding replacement chassis now from Bachmann is trying to search for a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, or trying to find out whether Bigfoot exists or not. They're not very common, and it's a shame, because I reckon if it had metal valve gear it could have gone on for longer. But no, it didn't have metal valve gear, which is a shame. And so now it can't be used and can't be run for obvious reasons. And so now, well, it's just going to be left in a box to rot basically. I do have its tender, which is here. In fact, this is probably the only thing in good nick, apart from the locomotive's body itself. And it can't be used as a spare for that one, simply because, well, just look at how the tender connects to the loco. It does it like that. And I'm not going to try and modify it, because that'll be pointless. So yeah, and also again, I can't even change the couplings, so it's not going to be that easy. Nor could I replace the buffers. Not unless you're a determined modeller. So yeah, I mean, this could probably be going for sale. Spares. And so could this one. Spares and repair, but it's just going to be left in a box to rot. Basically. I mean, rot. I mean, what you could do, to take away the chassis completely, cut these side rods off, and stick them in random parts on your layout. Or just take off the boiler like that, have it down on your layout somewhere, get it to stand up somehow, and have it like a stationary boiler or something. You know, the more realism the better. But yeah. So that's the original. That will never be used again. So that can go to one side, along with the tender. And all this as well, all its link motion. That will be no more. Anyway, enough with the old model. let's talk about the new model, which is what we're here for. And I went for a BR green one, as you can see, because I think these locomotives look much better in green. Because, you know, black, it's alright livery, but this green, it just suits them more. And also I went for a different tender, which is the BR1 tender, as you can see, because it's nice to have something a little different if you get the same thing, or if it's to replace the old one previously that's broke. You'll know what I mean. Hornby do make these as well, as I will point out. However, Bachmann's are probably the best, because there is more of a selection that they do, so you can choose which one you want. Hornby only do them in one livery, which is BR black, and they only make theirs with the two tenders. It's either the BR2A tender or the BR1B tender. Bachmann, they do both liveries and all 5 tenders. So Bachmann's are better because they have more of a selection for you to choose, and they do some weathered ones as well. Hornby do a few odd weathered ones, but Bachmann's, they're just better, clearly. And the detail on them is equally as impressive as the Hornby models. I mean, I previously had a Bachmann one, so that is why I went for another Bachmann one. I think it was just only fair. But now we will talk about what makes this model special, because if I don't talk about it, it will only leave people wondering. Because I'm not that sort of person that will say I'm going to mention it, but then forget it. So I will tell you what it is. It's something that I have added on myself. It's not the detail pack. Yes, I've added some of the details on myself, but that is not what I'm referring to. What I am referring to is something that did not come with this model, and I went off my own back and put them on. And if you haven't already noticed them, I am of course talking about the nameplates that rest on the side of the smoke box there. Now, I have ordered some etched ones from Narrow Planet, but because it will not take until after 6 or 8 weeks for them to arrive, due to etchings, I have made some myself until they arrive. When the etched ones do come, they'll be put on the model and these will be taken off. And I will do a video on that, because I think it will be rather cool. These are like temporary ones, but I haven't just taken a random piece of paper and just wrote on it with a biro and stuck it on. No. What I did, I went onto Page Plus 8.0 and made some. I got it to the right size because I didn't want it too ridiculously big. I chose red ones, and I chose the name to be wrote in yellow, because I did try green and orange, but they didn't come out so well. So the yellow worked out much better, in my opinion. And also I lacquered them, which, if you don't know what that is, it's basically a substance that gives it a glossy effect to it, and they are stuck on using PVA. So you can remove them later as well if you want. And then of course there's the name that this locomotive has, which is Katie. Now I'm sure you're all thinking now, why have you chosen to call this Katie? Well, you will know about this on Twitter. Those of you that are not on Twitter will not. So fasten your seatbelts and prepare for me to talk about something that you have never known about me before on YouTube. Katie happens to be my personal trainer at the gym, which is where I go to most days. See, that's something that you also didn't know about me on YouTube. I've only ever mentioned that on Twitter. I don't do my gym sessions with her all the time, but I always see her when I go down there. I always smile to her and say hello. She does the same. Aww. And because I love her, which I do, and she makes me happy, of course, I decided to name my train after her. Which is quite sweet, I think. And she knows about it, and she thought it was sweet as well, and was flattered. And I'm sure the critics, like everything to be perfect, are thinking, that's odd. Sorry if you can hear the football chanting in the background. I don't know if you can, but I can, and it's annoying. because the stadium is over at the back. But yeah, the serious critics are probably thinking, well, that's a bit odd. Well, I don't care, because it is a tradition, actually, to name locomotives after people, regardless even if it's your pet dog or your grandma. But I named it after someone I love, and she's special, and will always be, and this locomotive has the honour of carrying the nameplates. They may only be temporary for now, but there will be some extra ones coming, like I said before. Because I don't want this locomotive to be resting its box longer than it has done, really. So yeah, you will have known about Katie already on Twitter. You won't have on YouTube, but you do now. Ah, and she will always be loved. And so Katie, I hope you're watching this, but you're probably not, so boo-hoo. But anyway, that's basically what makes this locomotive special, and it always will be. And so will Katie. I could kiss this locomotive, but I'm not going to, because I think I'll probably end up in a mental hospital. But anyway, on with the detailing. Because I'm sure you're thinking, yeah, blah blah blah. We're not here to be interested in what you do in your free time or your love story. We're here to talk about the model. That's what we're here for. Well, don't worry. Calm down. We're now going to talk about this model in detail. So first, pardon, and I know this because I've been holding this model for how long. It is very heavy, but we need the weight, because without the weight this locomotive will be useless, and then the only thing it'll be good for really is being put on a shelf, so it'll be great for showcase then. And all it'll be doing really is running around your layout doing light engine movements, which wouldn't be that much good. So the weight is there for a reason, to help it to pull things. We do have an M socket there at the front. You can just about see it. That's where the coupling at the front used to be, but I have removed it. We have rivets on the buffer beam there, and sprung buffers. Not that they add realism, which they don't. I have seen some people say that they do, when they don't. Yet in reality they are sprung loaded when they make contact with coaches or wagons or other locomotives. This is not the case with the models, because they don't couple up to your stock via these. Sprung buffers are there for play, nothing else. We have the screw link coupling there that I've added on the front there. We have the front steps, which you have to put on yourself, and I've added them. You have a nice bogie, which is much better than what it had on the original model. Definitely. Of course. Because no wheels can fall out. The cylinders are very nicely detailed with some rivets on and lining. The running plate is accurate like it should be, raised above here, so it prevents the users of wheel splashes. Then here we have all this link motion. And the valve gear. It's not the Caprotti valve gear, but it's valve gear. And it's all metal, not a single piece of plastic in sight. And it's all done so accurately, and what it should be in real life as well. You've also got the sanding gear here at the bottom. Do be careful with it, because these are fragile. It will not take much to break these. Then at the top you've got rivets on the cab roof, as well as vents which don't open, but then they don't really need to. But they're there to let air into the cab on hot days, especially the weather we've had recently with the heat wave. You've got a nice dome at the top there as well, and the chimney. This is the whistle, which, if we'll wait for the camera to focus, come on. Why, yeah, there we go. This is actually a chime whistle, which is added behind the funnel there, like it should be, or chimney. We have nice metal handrails that go along down the side of the model. I've got some more detailing down here, which is these pipes. And just look at the lines that go all the way around the boiler. And the green livery as well, it's so accurate. You've got rivets on the running board as well, and lamp irons, like there should be. And you've got a shed plate there as well, which reads 4E. Not sure where that is. You've also got another handrail at the top there, as well as a lamp iron. There's the handles for the smoke box to open it up to clear it out, and then you've got this curious thing here, which I think is to help to open it up. I'm not sure, but it's definitely not a lamp iron. You've got all the rivets on the boiler, just look at that. If that makes the rivets counters happy, then good. Excuse the train horn. You've got, just look at all this detail you get on here at the top. All these pipes. There's glazing in the cab windows as well, and you've got lining around the cab number, which is riveted. Well, the cab sides are. You've got 5 there, which is the standard 5. The number is crisply printed as well. And you've got these metal handrails down the sides of this standard cab as well. Do be careful with them because they are fragile. Then you've got the drawbar connector with the 2 holes. That hole is for a gap and that hole is for close connection. Then also look at this. Now there is no cab detailing in there, but just look at the back of the cab. Very different. You could paint it if you want to. I didn't because, well, I was too lazy to. But I might do later. But then, to be honest, it doesn't really need to be there. It's great for detail, but you can paint it yourself. So never mind all the moaners that moan about cab interiors not being painted, because you can do it yourself. Remember what I've said, it's not rocket science. In fact, I'll probably have to focus as much as I possibly can on the cab, because on Thursday, next week, I'll be driving a real steam train. How about that? Then if you just spin the loco around, you've got more valve gear like there should be. There's the other nameplate, more handrails and piping. There's so much detail on it, and you've even got lines on the running plate as well. Very stunning indeed. And you've got some more pipes as well. More glazing in the cab like there should be. Wow. And there's even some more pipes down here as well, which is really ace. So, that's it for the loco. Not much else to say. Now we'll move on to the tender. Which, and I've saved this bit till last, this is actually one of the same tenders the 9Fs used. Not all of them had, but some of them did have. You know, think of Evening Star, it's the same sort of tender it uses. So here are some rivets at the front there, and some steps of course. We also have tender buffers. They're not sprung, but then they don't need to be, because it'll be a bit pointless. You've got some handles here which transfer the water to the boiler. And there's a small chute in there with some plastic fake hole which you can't remove, and I don't think you can file it down either to add your own in, but then why would you wanna? Then also you've got glazing here as well in these small windows, and this is to help because this is a clever design just like on the Bullids. It's basically so when this locomotive is in reverse it can be seen, so it won't make the visibility hard. And that's quite a clever design, and that is true what he had in reality. You've got rivets all on the tender, and it's got the same livery with the lines round it and the light crest, as you can see, which is nicely done and printed. There's rivets on the running frame as well, and the tender springs are there. And even the axle boxes are painted yellow. I didn't paint them, it came like that already. And there's even brake rods added under the tender as well, which, again, they already came like there. I didn't add them, which usually you have to stick them on yourself. It got more lamp irons on the back and sprung buffers, because the front ones were obviously. Another NEM coupling, which I've added the rear one on because you had to. And there's some more handrails at the back and a ladder, along with some more rivets. And you've got a plate that says 4,000 gallon. Well, 4,500 gallon by the looks of it, but still technically 4,000 gallon. in this case it says 4250, which is interesting. And BR1808, so that's obviously something to do with a tender. I'm not really entirely sure. Then got some more handrails on the top here as well, and this is where the water goes into. And being as this has been out of the box already, I have put a real coal load in there, as you can see. Although interestingly, it did not have a plastic coal load in the tender, which is quite weird. But then again, I would have added real coal in it anyway, so it's not really a problem. And there is a fair bit of weight in the tender, not massive amount, but then it doesn't need to. So that is basically about it for the loco in detail. What's it run like? Because I haven't run this yet. Well, we shall do that now. Let's put this on the track and see how she runs. Wow. So far, it's a stunner. Okay, so here we got the track. And so we're going to put the locomotive on. Now, as it's got the drawbar connector, you will need to connect the loco on the tender first. So we shall do that, which it probably won't be easy, but hey. Okay, so the tender is now connected. It wasn't exactly very easy to do, so I'm just pointing that out. But anyway, so let's get it on the tracks, ready for running. Excuse the giant hand in the way, if it is in the way. I don't know if it was there. So, we'll get the loco on first. So that's the bogie and the drive wheels, and that's the tender on. So let's just double check. Yep, it's on. So let's give it some juice, but first we need to give it a bit of a wiggle. Ah yes, look at that. Right, so let's get it rolling. Alright, you know it's coming. Rolling, 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 rolling. Right. Jump done and over with. Away with you. Well, she's definitely a smooth runner. There's no grinding noises or any other problems. Passing the hammer there, and the windmill. Look at all that link motion moving. And here it is, passing the engine shed. Let's just get a nice close-up shot there, look at that. Of the level crossing into the tunnel. You can't see it in the tunnel at this point, obviously. Sorry about the weird noise then. Sounded like one of them old bangers. Jalopies, whatever they call them. Out of the tunnel, and pretty much back to where we started from, of course. But yeah, she's running really great. Right, so we know that she's an excellent runner, very smooth, but there's something else that we are going to try as well. Right, so now we're going to get her pulling this rake of maroon coaches. It's been a while since I did a review and not coupled up a locomotive to a train. Well, it's happening now. So, let's get this engine going. Right, so what's left to say about it? Well, it's a stunner. Everyone needs a standard class locomotive, whether it's a 4 or a 5. Because I said so. No, but seriously, they are really stunning. Smooth mechanism, great performance, excellent detail, and definitely one of the true workhorses there is out there. Amazing.